Hey there, I'm Keith. I like the Vespids. I love the Arles, but where do the Thypoch Simera-Cs fit in? These are more affordable, but they're faster. I really didn't know how to figure these out. However, a local guy let me borrow a set of Simera-Cs for a project that fell through, but I still had the set of lenses and wanted to figure out where these lenses fit in my workflow. So I tested them against the Vespids, my Arles, and a set of loaner Arles Lustres that I have. And for the record, this isn't a Simera-C. I had to give those lenses back to Joe. And huge shout out to Joe for responding to my Instagram story and let me borrow those set of Simera-Cs. Seriously, thanks dude, I couldn't have made this video without you. All the footage in this video is, and all of my lens test videos, is ungraded footage. The only adjustments here are a color space transform from S-Log3 to 709. That's the only adjustment, maybe a little bit of exposure. But I try to keep the footage as straight off the card as I possibly can. There's a lot to cover with these lenses, but I wanted to go over the price and rental rates of each of these lenses because honestly, after laying it out, it got a little bit interesting. First off, if you want one Simera-C Sony E-mount lens, it's about $800 a lens or $4,050 for the 5-lens kit. If you want the M-mount, it is $959 per lens or $4,319. I couldn't find rental rates for these, but on ShareGrid, people are renting these lenses for $30 a day. So if you have a 5-lens kit of Sony lenses, you'd need to rent them out 27 times to make your money back. If you have the M-mount version, you would need to rent them out 29 times to make your money back. For the Vespid 5-lens set, you're looking at about $5,800 or $4,000 on sale right now. These lenses rent for about $50 a day, so $250 for the set per day for a 5-lens kit. You could pay these off in 16 shoot days, or if you paid the full price, 23 days. The Arles 5-lens kit is $9,800. Somehow these also rent for $50 a day. I don't know how, but that's what the rental rate is. So it would take you 39 days to pay off the 5-lens kit at $50 per lens per day. The Arles Lustre 4-lens kit is $10,800, and I was only able to find these on ShareGrid for $175. So if you were able to get a 4-lens rental, that would be $700 a day. You would only need 15 and a half days to pay these off. Honestly, I think this would be a little difficult in my market because I don't think someone would pay $700 a day for these lenses, even if they do cost that much. The one that I was quoting was in Atlanta, so that's a bigger market than Cleveland that I'm in. So honestly, I'd probably get like around $100 a day. So it would be closer to paying off the actual Arles with the Arles Lustre. It would just, in my market, it would balance out a little bit. From a rental standpoint, if you could get the Vespids on sale, you only need to use them for 16 days to get your money back, 23 at full price. M-mount Simera-Cs are 29 days, or the Arles are a whopping 39 days. If you're looking from strictly making money standpoint, the Vespids right now are a really good deal. I'm gonna put a graphic on screen now, just so you know the different weight and size dimensions if you would like to know those details. When it comes to my opinions on lugging these lenses around, the Simera-Cs, you will barely notice them on your camera. They are tiny and excellent lenses to travel around with, especially if you're just taking them in a backpack. If you are a one-man band, I see no problem at all taking the entire lens set around with you. They also come with like this silver case that got a couple of looks as well. The Vespids are not too heavy, but they still feel well built. You can fit a few of these in a backpack, and if you want to take the whole set around with you, you'll need the case. But if you just need like 3 lenses, you can put these in a backpack and not like overweigh yourself. If you are a one-man band, you can take the entire Pelican of these around with you. You may get a little bit tired at the end of the day, but you can still totally do it. The Arles are huge, chunky boys, and these are really solid, well-built lenses, but you're definitely going to need a Pelican case to take these around with you. I've taken 3 or more of these lenses around in a backpack with adapters and my FX3 and like a set of DJI mics, and it was a terrible time. It was really too heavy. 2 of these in a backpack with all your other gear is like really the sweet spot. One would be best, but if you're a solo operator, you're now creeping into needing a camera cart if you're taking the entire lens set around with you, because this is just humongous and the Pelican case for this is pretty large and heavy. Before we get into the look of these lenses, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, Motion Array. Motion Array has a wide variety of high quality video templates, footage, photos, music, sound effects, and more that you can use in your personal and commercial projects. Motion Array has a clean new layout where you can browse thousands of music and sound effects for your videos. And if you find a track or sound effect that you like, you can use the similar tracks option to find a similar asset. They have thousands of different assets and they break it down so it's easy to find exactly what you're looking for. Each asset comes with a step-by-step tutorial on how to use it. They also have over 50 plugins to help you from color grading to keying, sharpening to stylizing. They're compatible with Premiere Pro, After Effects, Final Cut Pro, Motion, Vegas Pro, Resolve, and Avid Media Composer. Motion Array also has an automated tool to automatically clear copyright issues so you can remove the headache of copyright claims. To try out Motion Array, you can sign up for a free account to access a small amount of free assets, or you can subscribe to a monthly or yearly plan to use their entire library in your personal and commercial projects. If you use the link in my description, you'll get 2 free months when you subscribe today. Thank you, Motion Array, for sponsoring this video. Now onto the part that I'm most interested in, the look of all these lenses. Let's go over a bunch of test footage that I shot, and I'll tell you what I think at the end. Going over the charts as fast as possible here, the 21mm is sharp wide open in the center, but it takes till T4 for the edges to sharpen up. Vignetting wide open, there's slight vignetting at T28, but it never quite goes away. The 50 and 75 behaved exactly the same here on the charts. The center was very sharp wide open, and the edges were also pretty sharp in the center by T2. I was very surprised at how sharp the 50 and 75 Simera-C were. They had some vignetting wide open, there was slight vignetting at T28, but it was gone by T4. I can't comment on the charts of the 28 and 35 as their minimum focusing distances were too far away. I wasn't able to fill the frame with the chart, so it really wasn't like a fair comparison here. Another boring test, but worth mentioning here. Here is a list of all of the different minimum focusing distances. The 2 outliers on this list, to me, are in the Simera-C, the 28 and 35. Like I said, the 28 and 35 wasn't able to fill the frame of my focus chart that I've used for all of my lenses. I initially thought this was the first look at the compromises we had to make with the Simera-Cs being so small and light in this form factor. However, looking at the sharpness chart, I wouldn't be able to do this test with the 21mm Arles anyway. That would be too far away and it wouldn't fill the frame too. So another outlier after looking here is the 75mm Arles. This is a little far away. I thought the pattern was going to be smaller lenses had farther minimum focusing distance, but the Arles also has a problem with that as well. The Vespids handled all of the charts, no problem though. So another point for the Vespids. Flaring is pretty subjective and the flares change based on aperture, but I had all these lenses at the same time at the same place, so I was like, let's just do this. In my opinion, the Simera-Cs reminded me of the Arles flare, but not as well controlled. The Simera-Cs weren't bad, but the Arles still seem to handle flaring very well. They're a little more fuzzy and hazy on the Arles. They're not as sharp like they are on the Simera-Cs. Both of them seemed a little bit cooler of a flare. The Vespid seemed to fit between the Simera-C and the Arles in terms of flare control, but the Vespid had a slightly warmer flare. We're splitting hairs here, but the Arles is the most pleasing flare in my opinion. That is until you get to the Arles Lustre. I love how pronounced the warm flare is here on the Arles Lustre. I have a whole video coming out about the Arles Lustre, and I know it's probably not everyone's favorite, but I love the warm flares. Taking a look at the bokeh, the out of focus areas on the Simera-Cs go past the slight cat's eye shape like the Vespid has and leans more towards like a swirl effect. It's tough to illustrate this, but I found this test footage shows the differences the best. Notice how the bokeh shape on the corners of the edges change as I pan the camera around. The bokeh towards the edges of the frame behaved very differently on each of these lenses. The Simera-Cs have more of a swirl effect. The Vespids are a bit of a cat's eye shape towards the edges. And the Arles have the least amount of distortion in the bokeh out of focus areas. Using these lenses, there are some color differences between them, but I don't trust my eyes, so I took color chip samples of each of these lenses, and we can compare those to the Vectorscope in Resolve. All of these lenses are a little bit warm with one outlier, but the 21mm was a little warm, the 28 was a little bit warmer still, 35 is like a tiny bit warmer, the 50 is more in line with the 21, the 75 is the most color neutral of the bunch, similar to the colors of the 40mm Arles. The Vespid is a touch cooler than the Arles, but get ready for this one. Boom, the Arles Lustre is way cooler, skewing cooler than warm, which was interesting because I thought this one would be really warm. I know Vectorscopes aren't everyone's cup of tea, so let's run through some test footage and I'll show you everything again. The Simera-Cs are a little bit warm. The Vespid is slightly cooler than the Simera-Cs, but still warm overall. The Arles is a little bit cooler than the Vespid, but still warm overall. Then boom, the Arles Lustre is pretty cold until you get a tiny amount of light down this lens. Then you can see those warm flares. I love that. I have an entire video going over the Arles Lustre in the future, so be sure to like and subscribe to check back for that video in the future. When it comes to filter sizes with these lenses, the Arles has an 87mm filter thread with a 95mm outer diameter that is consistent throughout the entire set. The Vespid has a 77mm filter with an 80mm diameter that is consistent throughout the entire set. The Simera-C has a 62mm thread with a 67mm outer diameter, but the 72 actually has a 67mm filter and a 72mm outer diameter that is not consistent throughout the entire set. Another important aspect of buying a set of lenses is the focal lengths available. The Simeras have 5 lenses from 21 to 75. For most things, that covers your general shots, but I love mixing macros in with really wide shots. So I personally love my set of Vespids because they have a really wide focal range. I have from 12 to like 125, and there's a 90mm macro in there, which is a total workhorse for product videos. The Arles has a great selection of lenses, but they're just really expensive. Spending $2,800 on a 14mm is a tough one to come to terms with. I'm gonna have to do it someday, but I'm just kicking that can down the road using my Vespid 12mm for as long as I can. I would love that one, but it's just pretty expensive. I assume there will be more Simera-Cs in the future, and I'd love a really wide lens and a macro lens, especially in this set, in a smaller form factor. Please, Thypoch, make that happen. I have a few opinions on using these lenses on a gimbal. If you're going to use any of these lenses with the RS4 Pro, they will all totally work. If you're going to use these for a few minutes, you can make all of these work. But if you're going to be using the gimbal for a longer period of time, you're going to notice the weight difference between the Vespid and the Arles pretty quickly. The Vespid is nice to use and it's easy to balance. The Arles can require some counterweights depending on your camera rig and what accessories you're using. However, you won't even notice the Simera-Cs in the front of your camera. If you're using a gimbal for a long period of time and you need a cinema lens, the Simera-Cs are definitely worth checking out. When it comes to focus breathing, this is where the Simera-C struggles a little bit, especially when you compare it to the Vespid or the Arles. Here's some test footage showing the differences between these lenses. Thypoch 50mm focus breathing test. Vespid 50mm focus breathing test. Focus breathing test, Arles 40mm. We're at infinity. Going back to infinity. Zoom focus. And infinity. Diesel film Arles 50mm focus breathing test. Knowing the Thypochs breathe like this, I would try to minimize shots where I'm racking focus. I can definitely notice the focus breathing, but for the price, is this an acceptable amount of focus breathing? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. When it comes to different mounts available, the Simera-Cs come in E or M mounts. The Arles and Vespid comes in an EF or a PL mount that you can swap and shim those mounts. The PL mounts are way more robust than using the Leica M mounts, but this mount is tiny, so one of its strengths is its size, but it's also its weakness too. When I was doing some focus breathing tests in the studio, my DJI follow focus would torque these lenses on my camera when it came to the ends, like by infinity or minimum focus. Doing a minimum focusing test with all these lenses and doing a focus breathing test, and I was just gonna do that test with a lens calibration. But the interesting part about these Thypochs is these are M mount and they're using an E to M on my FX6. There's actually a lot of torque on this focus motor, so I'll do a lens calibration and you look at the focus motor. I'll kind of give you like a front view here, but calibrating now. The DJI focus motor is pretty strong, and whenever you're adjusting focus in the middle of the range like you normally would, it's not that big of a deal. But I'm just going to hit minimum focus here. It just kind of has a little bit too much torque for this adapter. We're going to do one more calibration here and I'll just let you see it again. If you're using the DJI Focus Pro motors, you may need the native mount Thypochs. It might be a little stronger than using the M to E mount adapter. Thypoch Simera-C 50mm minimum focus test, and we're gonna see about the focus breathing. Interesting part about the 50mm, whenever you're focusing, the front element actually moves. I'll see if I can calibrate it right now and watch the front element. Yeah, I'll do it one more time. Okay, calibrating now. Simera-C 75mm, and we're going to calibrate right now, and we can see that the front of the lens is actually retracting. Let's do that one more time. I use the same DJI focus motor settings on my PL lenses, and I don't have to worry about this since the mount is way more robust. Again, this is pretty picky here, but it's something that I did run into and I wanted to mention. Okay, for my lens tests going forward, I'm going to include a section just called user experience. That is my personal opinions about these lenses, like just when I'm out using them. The first one is adjusting focus. These lenses are really small, and that's a good thing and a bit of a bad thing if you're adjusting focus by hand on the front of the lens. I found that it's a little bit annoying if you want to adjust focus by hand. I think the Vespids give the best focus ring here. It's huge, and it's not just the focus ring, it like extends in front and behind. So all the focus disting markings are also moving when you move this ring. I don't know if this was like on purpose, but I absolutely love adjusting focus on the Vespids in particular. Again, this is me just being grumpy and picky, but it's something that I wrote down, so I wanted to include it. Another picky thing I wrote down was it's tough to put on a lens when you're using an adapter. I grab the focus ring when swapping lenses, and I move the focus ring when I'm trying to mount the camera on my lens or take it off. So I have to like touch the body of the lens. I really wish I had this lens. I'll just put some B-roll on screen now. But the front of the lens is like all the focus ring. So if you're trying to put this on a camera and you're moving it, it's easy to move the focus ring and not actually move the mount part of the lens to like actually put it on your camera. Again, really picky, but it's something that I wrote down and wanted to mention. I know I've talked about this already, but a huge advantage of traveling with these lenses is its size, especially when traveling around. You can fit an entire set of these lenses in your backpack and still have plenty of room for cameras, mics, and not be overloaded. It's very easy to travel light with these lenses. Choosing between these is an extremely subjective thing. It's not only based on how you want your image to look, but it's how you want to work and what your budget is. If you are a solo shooter, I think the M mount Simera-Cs make a lot of sense. You can adapt them to plenty of different cameras. Very small, light, fast, contrasty. They have some unique bokeh, wide open, but you can stop down and that effect isn't as overkill. This would be a little overkill for corporate work, I think, like shooting at T15 with a swirly background, talking about TPS reports. But if you stop down to like T28, it actually looks pretty nice. and it's a great set of lenses for the price. They do kind of breathe a lot and they have inconsistent filter sizes with that 75mm, but if you're a solo creator, these are things that I feel like you can work around, and it's more of an annoyance than a deal breaker. Some sacrifices needed to be made, making a lens this small and lightweight and fast. So the sacrifices being like, I need to be aware of the focus breathing and minimum focusing distance and use a step-up ring is a pretty easy thing to work around. Maybe on a team it would be a little bit more annoying, but as a solo operator, I know that and I can just work around that. Stepping up to the Vespids, I feel like these are a little more built for a team. They're more consistent filter sizes and outer diameters. They're built like a tank. They have the PL mount that I think more people are like familiar with, and they would trust a little more than like a tiny M mount. It is T21. There is a little bit of focus breathing, but in my opinion, it's not enough to be distracting. The Simera-Cs are a touch distracting for me, but the Vespids are like right on the cusp of no one would ever notice. And they have a huge amount of focal lengths in the Vespid set, from 12 to 125, and I use the 12 all the time. I use the 35 or the 90 for product stuff. So they're really versatile, and the price right now is pretty good with the Vespids. Going to the Arles, all of these tests just cemented how much I actually love these lenses. In the side-by-sides, I always found myself preferring the Arles image. They are built like tanks, they're pretty heavy, but they just have an image that I like the look of. They have just the right amount of contrast and warmth. It's nice, but it's not overkill. It's like towing the line right there for the stuff that I do. The Arles Lustres are just a completely different animal though. They are beautiful lenses. I love the flares, and I have a video coming out about these lenses like in a month or so. I'm doing more testing on them, so I don't want to like speak out of pocket just yet, but they seem to be a little bit cooler, but the flares are just really warm. I kind of love that look. But is that look worth 11 grand for 4 lenses? That's a tough one. I know the Simera-Cs have been out for a while now, and if you have a set of these, let me know what you think of them. I can see myself picking up a set of these or just renting Joe's in the future if I'm on a lot of travel jobs, or if I just want a kind of a lens set with swirly bokeh wide open. I like that look. So I like that I know where to rent a set of these now. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end. Here are some more lens comparison videos you might like, and I'll see you in the next one.